Hey guys, welcome to my full review of the iPad Pro 10.5 inch. This is the mid 2017 model, and with this tablet Apple has really elevated the performance standard of high-end tablets. They're targeting the professional market. So in this review I'm going to give my perspective of the new iPad as somebody who does a lot of photo and video, including 4K video editing on my Panasonic G85, which I'm filming this on right now. I'm going to talk about two apps in particular here. The first one is Affinity Photo. It's a very powerful photo editing tool. It kind of combines the best aspects of Lightroom and Photoshop into one app that, thank God, doesn't have a subscription fee like Adobe does now with Creative Cloud. So for $19.99 you can get this one app. You just pay for it and you're done. Very powerful, has excellent support for the pencil, the Apple Pencil stylus, which I'll be talking about as well. So there's Affinity Photo, and the other one for video I'm using now is called LumaFusion. Now this, what you're watching right now, was edited on LumaFusion and uploaded on my iPad to YouTube. What you're seeing now does not use my iMac at all. This is all done on my iPad. So this is a great use case for that situation. So let me quickly talk about the history of the iPad, guys. Back in 2010 it was launched by Steve Jobs. It was Apple's first real foray into the tablet market, not counting the Newton of the 1990s. But when it came out, most people thought, well, this is just a big iPhone. But when you start using it, you start to realize it's very pleasant to surf the internet on and have that big screen and be able to touch UI elements, you know, not on a palm-sized device, but on a device the size of a piece of paper. But as the iPad evolved, and it's been through maybe 5 or 6 iterations now, each one adding more performance power, better cameras, better screens, and now with the 10.5 inch iPad Pro we've really hit a level where the performance is just outstanding. I've seen benchmarks of this thing where it's outperforming MacBook Pros. On Geekbench multi-core it's getting over 9,000. I mean, this thing, I did a video, the last video I uploaded to my channel. It was a 4K, it was about 6 minutes long, and I exported it on my iPad Pro and iMovie, and it was almost like it did in real time. It took about 5 or 6 minutes. And to export a 5 or 6 minute video clip in 4K on my iMac using iMovie, I mean, historically it takes like 30 minutes, 35 minutes. So this iPad Pro is spanking my iMac in terms of performance. Now granted, this is a 2010 iMac. It's not a Retina display, it's not a 5K, but it is a 95 watt i7 quad-core processor with hyper-threading. I mean, this thing is no pushover. It edits 4K video fine, but in terms of exporting speed, man, that iPad is powerful. So this is my first iPad. My parents have had iPads before because they live out in the country. They don't have Wi-Fi or cable. They just use LTE on their iPad and that's their internet. But for me, I never really saw the need to have one until I started using more video, using more photo, and going on these trips. And I thought, man, it would be nice if I had something I could have with me to edit these photos and videos that would be convenient. I wouldn't have to wait until I get home and use my iMac. I mean, there are times I go on trips for a week and a half, and I get home and I almost want to schedule an extra day, and sometimes I have off of work just so I can edit all my stuff while it's fresh in my mind and put my trip video together. And if I could use some of that travel time on the plane or downtime in the cabin editing photos and videos and getting a head start, that would really save me a lot of time and money when I get back. Plus, it's just cool, and it's great being able to show it off to people on such a high quality screen that iPad has. And I was also really excited about the proposition of Apple really targeting the creative professional market and promoting the pencil as a really easy to use yet powerful stylus, and I went ahead and bought one, and it's very cool. I mean, you can see here in this clip, it responds to pressure, it responds to angle, it has very low latency of 20 milliseconds. It has the lowest latency of any stylus available. You can see it plugs right into the bottom of the iPad Pro, and to see the charging level, you just swipe to the right from the main home screen and you'll see that percentage right there with a little lightning bolt if it's being charged. The pencil has some pretty cool design features. It has this cap that hides the lightning connector on the bottom, and if you set it down on a table, it will always roll so that the Apple Pencil branding is revealed on the top of the pencil, which is pretty cool. Just a little design consideration there. So let's quickly touch on the build quality, because just like most Apple products, it's fantastic. You get solid aluminum casing, metal buttons. You get 4 speakers, you get 1 on each corner, and they really have a big sound, and the speakers will dynamically adapt to whether you're holding the iPad in the portrait or the landscape orientation, and alter their left-right functionality to suit that. You get the exact same camera that's featured on the iPhone 7. I have mine here on the left. That is a 12 megapixel camera with optical image stabilization, 4K video support, 1080p 60 frames per second support, 1080p 120 frames per second for slow motion, or 720p at 240, and you get panorama and all that as well. So you get a camera on this thing that is so far beyond what most people would really need in a tablet camera. I mean, when I was at Yellowstone and this lady stepped in front of me and held her iPad up to take a picture of Old Faithful, it really got on my nerves. I don't want to be one of those people, but in case you want a great camera on your tablet, the iPad Pro definitely has you covered. Now here's something brand new, guys, on the new iPad 10.5 and 12.9 inch, and it's what Apple calls Pro Motion. It's basically their catchy term for a 120 frames per second, 120 hertz dynamic refresh rate, and that means it can ramp up to 120 if you're scrolling or swiping, but it can go all the way down to 24 if you're watching a video or looking at an iBook or static text. Basically, it just considers battery life when it drives that display, and it looks so smooth. It's something you can't really show on YouTube because YouTube tops out at 60 frames per second. What you're watching right now is 4K 24, so you're not going to get even close to the level of smoothness you get with ProMotion. But it's something I see for sure coming to the iPhone, and maybe even hitting the iMac and Apple's desktop computers. They have a lot more pixels to drive, but I still think that's something that Apple could do in the future, is adding ProMotion to its desktops and its iPhone. Now I'll quickly cover the software aspect. Coming from my iMac, I'm used to using iMovie and Lightroom, and I thought, well, I'll just use the same apps on my new iPad. Some pretty big problems with that. First of all, Lightroom, I don't have to use Creative Cloud on here because I'm using an older version, but the version of Lightroom that works on the iPad requires a subscription, and the lowest level subscription to get you just access to Lightroom is $10 a month. That might not sound like a lot, but over a period of time you're spending a lot of money to have that on your iPad, and I thought, well, I can use it for free on here, so why would I spend, hundreds of dollars over the period of years to use it on my iPad? So I skipped on that and I went straight to Affinity Photo. Now this was shown off during the keynote. It's a very powerful image editing tool. Of course, you can just import your RAW files straight from your camera using the USB 3 compatible SD card to Lightning dongle I have here. And it does transfer files and videos very fast over that new USB 3 connection that's supported on the new iPad Pro. So yeah, you can use Affinity just to edit RAW files and export them, but it can do so much more. It can do a lot of retouching and more Photoshop style editing. It has, layer support and all the transformations and filters and selection tools. It's very powerful, guys. It's really way more powerful than anything I need. But the fact that it's $19.99 as a one-time payment, you own the app, and the fact, guys, look at this. I mean, they've been updating this app on a weekly basis since it's been launched. This is something they're putting a lot of work into, fixing all the bugs and making it a very polished experience. And using the app, it comes preloaded with tutorials. It has very useful help features. So even though I haven't played around with it too much, I'm already hitting the ground running. I'm using it just about like I was using Photoshop and Lightroom before. So if you're looking for a photo editor, definitely look at Affinity Photo for the iPad Pro. Now on the video side, I never really had any issues using iMovie on the iMac. It was very powerful. I could put all my photos and videos. I could overlay, do picture-in-picture. But then when I get to the iPad, I have these strange limitations, like I cannot have an overlaid photo or a picture-in-picture photo over video. I have to have a video over video. It's the stupidest thing, and the only way to get around it is to convert your photo into a video file or make a slideshow video of your photos and then chop it up and overlay it. It's a kind of a ridiculous workaround. And then I had some other frustrations working with transitions and titles. I couldn't even change the text color of a title or the font of a title for a scene. It's really limiting, guys, and it's kind of embarrassing that this is the iMovie that comes with the iPad Pro, but that's something I'll talk about a little bit later. So what I decided to go with for video editing is LumaFusion. This is something that was again suggested to me by my viewers, you guys right here, and thanks. It's very powerful. It's even more powerful than iMovie on my iMac. Like Affinity Photo, it's $19.99 one-time purchase, and like Affinity Photo, they've been updating it pretty continuously since it's been launched. It really takes use of the power of the iPad to give you 3 streams of video, 3 streams of audio, all kinds of transition effects, way more transition effects than what's on iMovie for iPad, way more title effects, really just a ton of flexibility, everything I could want, so definitely worth the money. So definitely great software there, using Affinity Photo for my photo editing and LumaFusion for video. Now this brings up a very important point. Apple really needs to get on this because they need to have their own software suite tailored towards this iPad Pro. There's no reason why iMovie should be so limited on this iPad Pro if they're throwing it in. I mean, when you're using it, it's just like using the iPhone version of iMovie. It's just so limiting. Apple needs to, at the very least, update iMovie to give you more pro features that people who buy the iPad Pro would want. And secondly, really, they should come out with an iOS iPad version of Final Cut Pro, which is their desktop high-end video editing software positioned above iMovie. So maybe they have this planned, but I asked an Apple employee when I bought my iPad Pro in the store the other week, I said, with iOS 11, is Apple planning on, updating iMovie? And she said, well, we don't really know. We haven't really heard anything about that. So I don't know. But I definitely think that's a weak spot. Apple needs to get their software in line with the massive performance power of this iPad Pro. So to sum up the actual iPad Pro, tremendously powerful. Its potential on the software side is not really realized out of the box, but with Affinity Photo and with LumaFusion, you're able to tap into that capability, especially with the Apple Pencil, which I really like. Highly recommend that as well. So I think iOS 11 is going to open a lot of doors for this tablet in terms of users getting a real pro experience from it, getting a real desktop replacement experience from it. So we have that to look forward to, guys. It's like maybe 3 or 4 months away. What is it, July? 3 months away. iOS 11, free download. Now the last thing I'm going to bring up is a case. I obviously don't have a case for my iPad Pro, but one I have my eye on. It's made by Sena, SENA.com. It is the Future Folio case for the iPad Pro 10.5 inch. Comes in around 80 bucks, I believe, $79.99. It's a little bit on the pricey side, but seeing as Apple doesn't see fit to offer a case that covers the back and the front of the iPad at the same time, I had to go to third party and I found this. It has a nice leather backing on it, micro suede on the inside to keep the iPad surface clean, has a cover on the front which will automatically, put it to sleep with a magnetic strip, and it can prop itself up just like the smart cover can do. So just a nice solid leather case, good cutouts on it. I got the one in black. The only thing is it won't be available until late July, so I actually pre-ordered it. And until then, I'm just being really careful with my iPad. It really hasn't even left my room yet, which is kind of sad, but we'll get there. All right, guys, really like this iPad. I think it's going to be a fantastic addition to my toolkit. It's something that can travel with me very easily. My camera bag I use with my G85 kit, the Low Pro Tahoe BP150, actually has a slot that is made just the perfect size for an iPad. So I can take it with me and do all of my photo and video editing on the go. Aside from that, it's just a powerful platform. It's great for games. I really like playing Monument Valley 2. It's something that was, it's a game that was announced at WWDC. I played it through start to finish with headphones on, just a really relaxing and interesting experience, so really liked Monument Valley too. So this is just a really great, pleasant platform to use for both business and play. It's a little bit on the pricey side, guys, but know that when you're paying this much for an iPad, you're going to get a great experience. You get a fantastic screen, all the processing power you could ever dream of in a tablet, and more. Great camera, great functionality, ProMotion, and access to the best tablet app ecosystem out there. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Until next time, see you later.